Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session of the AI Nurses Network webinar series. Today, we've got a great speaker, Professor Roger Watson, who's the Editor-in-Chief of Nurse Education and Practice, and he's had a very long and productive career as a nursing scholar. So today, Roger's going to talk about using artificial intelligence in scientific publishing.
Okay, thanks, Siobhán. Thanks for the introduction. It's certainly been a long career. I don't know about productive, but others can judge. Well, thanks very much. I'm just going to talk for a few minutes about AI in academic publishing, which is an area I've been working in for 30 years. Not AI, but I've been working in academic publishing. For Wiley, and I now work with Elsevier on the journal Nurse Education and Practice. And I think that AI is in the process of, and ultimately will revolutionize the publication industry. And I think the big question remains is how many people like me, how many human beings do we need left in that process? And we're not sure yet. We keep saying things like we must have human oversight of all these things, but I'm beginning to wonder myself. Anyway. Okay, as usual, the first slide doesn't come up there. That's it. The impact of generative AI on academic publishing and generally on people's lives are many and varied. I think one of the major things you can see at the top there is it's certainly helping people whose first language is not English. And it's helping them with translation and also with writing papers, which of course creates a few difficulties for us as editors, maybe something we can talk about later, Siobhán. It certainly helps me because I only speak English, and I had to correspond with somebody in Austria the other day, and I wasn't sure if they spoke English or not, so I used ChatGPT to translate what I said into German, and it worked perfectly, and they got back to me in German. Then I was able to translate it back and have a correspondence with them. It makes coding easier and faster for those who are into coding. I mean, you can just ask generative AI to create, for example, R coding for statistical packages. It summarizes other research. It saves time reading it. It does this fairly well. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit after this about the limitations and how to use AI and what I think about that. But I think this is one thing it does well. And in fact, we've been using AI type platforms to do this for quite a while, really. It certainly speeds up admin tasks, no doubt about that at all. Basically, if you've upload documents to AI, you can ask it to summarize, merge, do calculations across from costs to hours and all sorts of things. It does amazing things. But down at the down in the bottom view categories there, it certainly helps people to write manuscripts more quickly. It's got the potential to improve scientific research. I think we've seen already some areas where science has made leaps forward due to AI being able to scan databases and to make suggestions for novel substances and novel fields of research. Helps with brainstorming, can generate research hypothesis, and right at the bottom there, which of course is where me as an editor comes in, it can really help peer review of manuscripts. It can do this much more quickly. And while we don't yet have a system at Elsevier for doing this, I know that Wiley are now developing a system which will help editors to review manuscripts. And again, we can possibly talk about that later. So these are the sort of things that it helps, and these are the sort of things that are important for those of us in the academic publishing industry. So the impact on journal operations, and I'm taking this from a presentation that I took part in for the Inago Academy, which I do a little bit of work with. They're an editing and scientific integrity company which helps people to produce manuscripts. Computer-based intelligence can do various things. It can streamline submissions and formatting checks. This is a sort of one of the many rate limiting steps in the publication process is the initial process whereby people submit manuscripts and they're not in the correct format. They've got things wrong with them. AI can check for that very quickly. It can automate communication with authors. It can automatically send back letters to ask them to do X, Y, and Z to improve their manuscript before it's resubmitted to the journal. It can also provide insights through bibliometric analysis. The ability of AI to sort of search the web and find out how things are being cited and used is very good. And of course, we hope that it can enable faster publishing workflows. The publishing process of getting academic manuscripts published in reputable journals is very slow. As I say, there's a step at the beginning which can hold things up, but another big step along the way, which is really rate limiting, is the peer review process. And of course, we're all hoping that it can help us with that and help us to publish more quickly and help authors to get their work published more quickly. It's very common criticism of academic journals that they take far too long to get things out. It's changing peer review. This is where it could have a big impact. It's having an impact in some journals and some publishing platforms, but we reckon that AI cannot replace human judgment in evaluating the merit and novelty of research. I have to say, I think that remains to be seen. We'll have to do some research into that to find out how well human-made decisions and AI-made decisions about manuscripts can be compared. So I'm not so sure that we'll always hold to this, but I think it's a sort of mantra that we're saying at the moment in the publishing industry, because we don't want to do ourselves out of a job. But AI tools can certainly assist. We know this in key parts of the review process. Again, that initial automation of checks for plagiarism and formatting, assisting in technical screening and assignment to reviewers. So technical screening, for example, if something purports to be a systematic review, has it followed the PRISMA guidelines? If it's a randomized controlled trial, has it followed consort? These things can easily be picked up by generative AI. And we've already partly automated the assignment to reviewers by using the keywords that reviewers enter on our system and the keywords that authors enter when they submit their manuscripts. We can automatically generate a list of reviewers, but it still needs the human touch to make a choice and to make sure that the reviewers are not overloaded, or that they do actually respond quickly, that they're not bad reviewers. AI could easily take that task away, and that's a major job of editors, of handling editors, and it's one that I'm sure they'd be glad to have help with. And of course, it can analyze papers to identify the key topics and to some extent to assess the quality. I've certainly had experience, not with papers, because at Elsevier we're not allowed to put our papers through public domain generative AI for reasons of the copyright, but I've certainly used it to look at research proposals, and I've been able to use it to rank research proposals, and the ranking was almost exactly what I would have ranked them myself. So it can actually assess quality if you put in the right questions for it to address. And it has the potential to reduce bias and improve fairness, because wherever human beings are involved, you cannot eliminate bias, and you cannot eliminate discrimination. And provided AI is taught properly, it could have the potential to reduce that bias. But again, I think this remains to be tested properly. But the most controversial part, and Siobhán and I know all about this, is generating content using AI, and this is where the academic publishing industry is most concerned. We're quite happy with people to use it to improve papers, to help with English and to check grammar, for typographical errors, flow, that kind of thing. But AI can actually generate papers from scratch if you give it certain prompts, and we certainly don't want that to be happening, because these papers can often just be not nonsense or very, very poor. They can be plagiarized because the AI is using existing material on the web to create its content. So this is the biggest area of concern for us. So, we can obviously automated writing of basic descriptions and summaries, that's okay, but there are limitations and risks of fully AI written papers. And one of the things so far that ChatGPT seems to be very poor at is pulling in correct references. I'm not sure why this is the case, but this is something that's been reported to me. And of course, ethical concerns about the contribution that's made. Is this your paper? Does it belong to the AI platform, or does it belong to somebody else altogether from whom the AI platform has taken that content? And of course, we've got to consider the future of AI as a co-author or contributor in a paper. And Siobhán's going to ask me a few questions after this, and I'll address something that Siobhán and I did and got into a great deal of controversy about regarding that in the early days of using AI. So this is a paper. This is the paper in question, an editorial by Siobhán that I published in Nurse Education and Practice. And Siobhán acknowledged the use of ChatGPT because she had in fact used it to write the paper and to write the editorial as a demonstration of what ChatGPT could do. And I thought this was rather an amusing thing to do. And with my full knowledge, we published the editorial acknowledging the use of ChatGPT. This got me considerable criticism from the academic world, a flow of emails. It got the paper cited in Nature of all places, and I think it's probably the first paper in nursing education to be cited in Nature. And so I was being heavily criticised by the scientific community for publishing this and acknowledging the use of ChatGPT in the editorial. My publishers were clearly concerned about it too, but their concern turned to praise and admiration rather than admonition after a while, because this editorial happens to be the highest cited editorial that Elsevier has ever had, mainly because it got into mentioned in Nature and mainly because of the controversy around it. However, I did this just to demonstrate and see, more or less, to see what would happen. I learned that very quickly, but we quickly were clearly instructed that generative AI should not be acknowledged as an author. And at the same time as generative AI was being brought in around 2022, because nobody had heard about ChatGPT before that, publishers were producing guidelines for its use, and that's really what I want to talk about next. So journals are handling the use of AI models in writing by having declaration of generative AI in scientific writing. And I know that Wiley's doing this, and what I'm going to present here is the model that we're using at Elsevier. So we state, we have a statement within our author guidance that authors should only use technologies to improve readability and language. It should be done with human oversight and control, so the author should carefully review and edit the result. And in my own use of AI to help with writing and checking manuscripts, it is sometimes necessary to do that. And they should not be listed as an author or co-author or be cited as an author. So that's very clearly stated now. So they shouldn't be. So this is really what we're doing to try and cope. It depends on the honesty of the authors, of course, and there are one or two people getting caught now and again. It's difficult to detect, but there are ways of detecting the use of AI, and publishers are working hard to produce tools to do this. And there's certainly evidence out there that there's an increasing use of AI to generate papers, because AI uses certain phrases and certain ways of saying things that can be detected. But we're working hard to try and accommodate the correct use of AI. there was a big panic within the publishing industry and discussions that AI should be banned completely from use in the academic publishing industry. I was one of the voices, and not alone, but one of few that said this is impossible. We've got to accommodate it because we can't ban it. It's just impossible to do that. It's far too advanced and far too much, far too available for us to do that. And we'd never know if we'd banned it or not. So if you submit a paper to an Elsevier journal, you have to make a statement along the following lines: that during the preparation of the work, the authors used, and you've got to specify the tool, and in order to do what? In order to check the content or help with the language. And after using it, you've got to declare that you edit the content and that you take full responsibility for the content of the publication. If anything goes wrong, you cannot blame the AI platform. You can't say ChatGPT made a mistake and ran away. You've got to take responsibility for it yourself. And we're hoping that this will lever good practice in the use of AI, but again, that remains to be seen. And this is a t-shirt that Siobhán bought me, and I wear with pride around the place. My wife doesn't like it, but I do. But I don't need ChatGPT. My wife knows everything. It says there, thinks she knows everything, but in fact, my wife does know everything. So if anybody wants to contact me afterwards, personally, that's my email at the journal. You can check my own research record there. You're welcome to contact me on WhatsApp by scanning the QR code there, or if you're in the Far East, you can use the WeChat code there. And Siobhán might make these PowerPoints available later, but they're on a presentation anyway, so you can scan that and happily to be in contact with people. So thank you very much for listening, and I think Siobhán's going to ask me a few questions now.
Yeah, that's great, Roger. Thanks. I didn't realize the editorial was so well cited.
Oh, sorry,
Yikes.
I thought I'd told.
No, I'm sure you probably did. I just forgot.
If I stop sharing now, is that okay?
Yeah, do.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
that's
Okay,
great. Yeah,
back on.
lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I know you probably already touched on it already, but it'd be great to know how you got interested in artificial intelligence and
Yeah, well, it was
got
you.
started with it.
It was you. I had absolutely no idea what ChatGPT was until you submitted
Uh,
that editorial. You were quick off the blocks. I mean,
yeah.
everybody knows about ChatGPT now. If they don't, they must have been asleep. But that was published, what, 2022 or 20? Sorry, I've forgotten now. Was it 21?
Early January 23, yeah.
23, yes,
Mm.
because nobody had heard of these things until somewhere in the middle of 2022. So you're quick off the mark. That got me interested, and of course, the more controversy we generated, the more interested I got, because I like controversy, and that's really what got me into it. I mean, I've only recently started using it or doing research into AI. As you know, I work in Hong Kong part-time, and I've got a project there with my colleagues at St. Francis University where we are developing a chatbot based on a GPT type platform, but within the School of Nursing there, to assist nurses who are starting on a new clinical placement. So we're doing two aspects to it. One is trying to train the model to give answers that will be reassuring to people who say things like, I made a mistake today, what do I do? I feel terrible, or I'm really anxious about my placement, that kind of thing. But also to try and tie in, and I've been involved in that side of it, but also to try and tie in a knowledge-based information. In other words, I have a patient, I have a pediatric patient who's got a pyrexia. What's the best? Is it best to use paracetamol or aspirin? For example, and we're hoping that we can, get that content in there. I'm not sure how we're doing that, but I've certainly played a part in using my previous research on retention of nursing students and feeding in some of what we learned there into the model. And it seems to work very well, and people are testing it and using it. So hopefully that will be developed for use in that school and perhaps spread out and commercialized in some way.
Yeah, I know medication management is always a big issue for nursing students and just juggling, trying to get to grips with the calculations and worrying
Yes.
about getting it right.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
that'd be
That's it.
fab.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, talking about students, I suppose, do you have any advice for maybe young nurses who are maybe interested in AI, what they could start
Yeah.
doing or not doing?
Yeah, well, I think one thing is not to be afraid of it, and not to listen to the naysayers who say, "Oh, it doesn't, it makes mistakes." Yes, everybody makes mistakes. Nothing's perfect. I think is learning to use it properly. I think the worst use of AI is asking it a blank question like, how do I get from my house to somebody else's house, something like that. I mean, there's other ways of finding out that information. And I had an experience only this weekend in Vienna, where I was for Easter weekend, of asking how to get from Schwedenstrasse to one of the art galleries, and it gave me a completely bogus answer. I mean, complete nonsense. It told me to get the tram D from there to. Tram D didn't even go past there, so that was wrong. So sometimes it can make mistakes like that. But so if you do ask it things like that, then you need to check. On the other hand, if you ask it who the president of Vienna is, it should give you an accurate, up-to-date answer. It's but it can't, because it'll search the web and find these things out. I don't know if we asked it who the Pope was, it may not. I don't know if it'll give us an accurate answer. For those of you listening, just listening in the future, the Pope died just a few days ago. I shouldn't be laughing at that, but I'm just saying. I just wonder. Sometimes it takes a while to catch up with events like
Mm.
that. However, where I've found AI to be really useful is using it as an analytical tool and a calculating tool. So, for example, uploading papers to it. And for example, I'm really interested in absolute risk ratios of vaccines and various treatments. So loading up a paper that doesn't tell you what the absolute risk ratio is and asking it what the absolute risk ratio is, it calculates it in milliseconds basically, and it gives you the actual working out, so you can check in the paper to verify. That kind of thing's very good.
Fantastic.
The other use, I mean, recently I'm in the process of writing to every vice chancellor in the UK about something to do with the National Conference of University Professors that I work with, and I got a list of vice chancellors and their universities up to date from ChatGPT, and then I've got a standard letter that I wanted to send out. And I thought, I wonder if I can generate letters to each of those VCs using this. So I uploaded the standard letter, uploaded the list of VCs, and I expected to be going off for a cup of coffee and coming back and finding it still doing it. Immediately, 100 letters generated in a folder straight away. And
Really? Wow.
I was just blown away. And I showed a colleague there who just couldn't believe it. So AI is very good at using what you upload to it and making use of that. So I think that's useful. So using it for reading papers, for finding evidence from papers. I think it's very good, very good for that. And of course, don't be afraid to use it to check your writing. I almost everything I write goes through ChatGPT these days, and what I do is I ask it not to rewrite it, but to give me a list of the points. So rather than creating a new document, give me a list of the points that I can check off. So it's not changing my writing. I'm just using it to correct. Then, there's hardly a day goes by, Siobhán, that I don't use AI for something now. I'm a complete
Great.
addict,
Good.
complete addict of it. So I'll need some treatment soon to sort of wean me off it. I think there's other uses I've made. There's so many different uses I've made of it. That it's just excellent for that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's got endless applications for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, my last question, which is probably a really tricky one, is yeah, where do you think AI will go in the future? Because you mentioned some things, especially I think the first or second slide of your presentation, where
Yes.
it had
Yes.
the now versus the future in academic
Yes.
publishing.
Yes, I mean the now and the future. There, I mean I think that's probably just. I don't know how the data for that slide was generated. I just came across it, but it seemed in each of those categories that the future would be more use of it. It's not going to go away. It's here. It's here to stay. I think it's going to be. It's going to be central to everything we do quite soon. I think, without a doubt. I know some people fear that, some people have got concerns about that. I might have some concerns about it myself, but then again, we were concerned about Google, we were concerned about the internet, we were concerned about all sorts of things, and now we live with them, and we can't get by without it. I think in where I work in the publishing industry, or I work alongside the publishing industry as an editor, I think it really is going to revolutionise that. I think that's one area where it's going to change things. But I mean, we're going to see AI everywhere. I mean, I was in Hong Kong recently, and this is slightly political, depending on who's listening. But I mean, the China had an unexpected exercise out in the South China Sea, around about Taiwan, using the latest technology. And apparently, they have drones which can fly 10,000 miles, and they can identify a target. If a human being tries to identify the target and see if it's legitimate, it takes 9 minutes. It takes AI 90 seconds to identify a legitimate target. So sadly, the whole area of warfare and defense is just going to be absolutely revolutionized by AI. Whether that's a good thing or not, I'm not saying. I'm just saying that's one area we're gonna see that. So when we see things
Yeah.
flying over us, airplanes, all sorts of things, we'll be beginning to wonder if there's somebody in control, sitting in it, or somebody 1,000 miles away controlling it.
Yeah, I think we'll need to keep one eye on the sky for sure.
Yeah. But no, but I think AI is going to be a terrific help, because I don't know how it does it. I don't know anything about programming at all, but it learns as it goes along. It's just going to get better and giving better answers and more accurate information all the time. And then you've got platforms in our area as researchers, platforms like Julius AI, which use R coding or Python coding, you can ask it to use either, and you can ask it to do, look at this database, do a factor analysis, and it does it, because I've actually repeated a factor analysis that I did in SPSS using Julius AI, and it gave me almost identical results. I hadn't played about with it enough, but I
Yeah.
mean, it's going to. Sadly, if anybody from IBM's listening, I think it's going to do away with SPSS. I can't see why people would need it now. You don't think, you just have to literally tell it in Anglo-Saxon what you want it to do, and if you want it to use Python coding or R coding, it makes no difference. It'll give you the coding too, and it
Fantastic.
does it. So there's another use, which is good. But again, that's using data that you upload to it.
Yeah.
And I find it's very good at doing that. I've never had a problem with that at all. Um, and for reviewing research grants, provided you're allowed to do it, some bodies don't allow you to do it, and you've got to be honest about that. But if they don't say anything, I tend to upload them and give it the criteria in a separate document. Say, pull out a statement in each of these areas, and it begins. I was doing something yesterday. It was beginning to give me. It was beginning to give me an opinion on things I hadn't asked for. It had
Really?
sussed what I was trying to do. So this
Brilliant.
is I'll finish soon. Systematic reviewing, that's another area where AI is just going to completely revolutionize things. And my colleagues in Maribor have just been across.
Mm,
They're working they're working to develop and test systems that will do systematic reviewing, and
fantastic.
testing against the human angle. But for extracting information, basic information, like what's the design, what was the questionnaires that were used, what were the results, it's much better than trying to read it and summarize it yourself. And it will generate a table for you as well. So it's
Great.
magic. It's magic.
Sounds good to me. That's
So
about so
thanks
many
to you. You
hours.
see, my life's been revolutionized.
Oh, well, great. Thanks for your time today, Roger. And it's great
Okay.
to hear about a bit more about AI in academic publishing, and
Yeah.
might check back in a few years' time and see what life is like then.
That's right. Yes, that's right. I'll be a bot by then.
Yeah, so will I think. Oh, great. Thanks
Okay.
so much.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers. Hopefully, I think that's going great. I'll just stop the recording there and we can have a quick chat.